Well, having just watched the president's interview with WDAY television in Fargo, I couldn't resist the opportunity to come down to the studio and say a few things from a North Dakota perspective about some of the things that he said from a Washington, D.C. perspective. He talked on a number of issues, and I certainly want to spend a fair bit of time talking about what he said about the Keystone XL pipeline's veto. But before that, the fact that he's taking credit for, quote, saving the economy as his greatest accomplishment, I have to ask him where he's been. Now, North Dakota's got a very good economy, very strong economy. But I have colleagues from all over the country, and I hear from people from all over the country. And, Mr. President, the American economy, while it may look good at Wall Street, and I know they're an important constituent of yours, and I know the government's grown nicely for you, and I know they're an important constituent of yours, but the American economy is far from recovered. In fact, while you like to take credit for a dropping unemployment rate, thanks to the fact that most people have given up looking for work, I remind you, we have the lowest labor force participation rate in the last 36 years. I was a junior in high school the last time that this low percentage of American laborers actually had work. So the gap between the rich and the poor may be getting wider, and that may look good for the rich, and that may make for a nice statistic for your economic recovery. It's not. It's not good for middle-class America. And you even talked about a middle-class economy as though somehow you're concerned about it. And I think that's a good segue into the main topic of the interview and where I found the most to debate with you. The president said that he's all for a middle-class economy, and he said that he vetoed the Keystone XL pipeline because of the process that Congress was bypassing a process that so far has taken him 2,350 plus days. This is a process that long ago was bypassed, not by Congress, but rather by his inaction. Over 5 environmental impact studies, no findings of concern by any of the agencies that should cause him to not do it. But he said he's promoting exports and promoting trade, and yet our #1 trading partner is Canada. We do $2 billion worth of trade with Canada every single day. It's one of the biggest trade partnerships in the world, and in fact in world history. And yet he continues to poke them in the eye. And then he says with regard to the Keystone XL pipeline, part of why he doesn't support it is because it, quote, bypasses America. And when he said that, when I heard him say it's bypassing the United States, it caused me to understand a little better why he isn't supportive of it. He doesn't know it goes through the United States. That's why he has the authority to sign the presidential permit. And I think that could be clarified for him, and perhaps we could change his mind. Mr. President, the reason that you have the authority to sign a presidential permit is because it actually crosses the U.S.-Canadian border and goes through the United States. Then he said it doesn't help American workers or American jobs, and it's not American infrastructure. Well, explain that to all of the states that it goes right through the heart of. States like South Dakota and Nebraska and Oklahoma. And by the way, Mr. President, I would say, every one of those states supports the pipeline because it creates jobs for their workers, for their citizens. So now that I know he doesn't understand, that he thinks it actually bypasses the United States, I have a better understanding of why he's confused about the value of the pipeline. And then he said 250 to 300 jobs. His own State Department's report says it supports 42,000 jobs. 42,000 jobs. Not 250 to 300, 42,000. And furthermore, it displaces Venezuelan oil. Do we want our oil? Do we want to buy oil from Venezuela and a dictator? Or do we want to buy it from our $2 billion a day trading partner, Canada, and create wealth and national security here? You know, he also talked about his legacy a little bit. That was a good question, by the way, about what his legacy is. And he says, I still have 2 years, so I'm still looking forward. Well, so far in these last 2 years, we've had 6 weeks of Congress, and he's threatened 14 vetoes. Now, a man who's looking forward to a legacy doesn't threaten 14 vetoes on the Congress's work. And I'm very, very concerned by what I saw and the attitude that I saw expressed in the interview. And so I just want to challenge the president to reconsider how we move forward together. reconsider 14 vetoes. Reconsider a pipeline that is American infrastructure, that does create American jobs. By the way, the steel workers in Pennsylvania that made the steel for the Keystone Pipeline, those are permanent jobs. They're middle-class jobs. They're good for the middle-class economy. They might even be good for your friends at Wall Street, Mr. President. I'm not sure, but I know they're good for middle-class America. So reconsider the veto and the other 13 veto threats so far this year. And why don't you consider working with Republicans and Democrats in Congress to really accomplish some legacy that's worthy of its accomplishment. Appreciate the TPA discussion and the opportunity to export more of our agricultural commodities to Asia. No doubt about it. It's a very important market. But remember, we've got to look out for America's interests in these deals as well. Just getting all excited because Asia is a growing market, that may be okay, but it's not okay if all of the rules go against our producers while they benefit the Asian producers. And so we're looking forward to seeing more specifics as you start talking about both the TPA and, of course, the TPP. So maybe we have something we can work on together going forward, Mr. President. I hope we can. But with that, I just couldn't let any more time go by having watched that interview. And congratulations to WDAY for getting it. And thanks for asking the pertinent questions that exposed this misunderstanding, especially that the Keystone XL pipeline does not bypass the United States of America. In fact, the barges that they're carrying it on now do bypass the United States of America. It still gets to the Gulf Coast, but it emits a lot more CO2 that way, of course, and it doesn't create, it creates fewer American jobs doing it that way, of course, and it's not nearly as safe. But at least the trains still run through the United States of America, Mr. President. By the way, I might also add that I was sort of stunned that the President didn't understand that the Keystone XL pipeline does have a minimum of 100,000 barrels per day of capacity for North Dakota Bakken crude in it as well. And we know that moving Bakken crude safely and efficiently through the Keystone XL pipeline is an important piece of the American transportation infrastructure. Thanks for listening.